One day, the people who love you are going to have to say goodbye to your body. For you, there's a system. Someone makes a call, a form gets signed, your body is carried away, handled by people you'll never meet, and the world keeps moving. But for 300,000 years, there was no system. No forms, no professionals, no one to call. There was just people and their hands, and someone lying in front of them that they could not bear to simply walk away from. So what did they do? What did the very first humans do? The first time someone they loved just stopped. To find the answer, you have to climb down into a pit in northern Spain, 13 meters into the dark. At the bottom of that pit is a place with a name that tells you everything. In Spanish, they call it Sima de los Huesos, the pit of bones. And it is full of them. The remains of at least 28 people, men, women, children, piled at the bottom of a 13-meter vertical shaft deep inside a cave in a chamber with no other way in. Here's the thing. Animals didn't drag them there. A flood didn't wash them in. There is no natural reason for 28 bodies to be at the bottom of that shaft, which leaves one explanation scientists still argue about but can't shake. Someone put them there on purpose. 430,000 years ago, long before our own species even existed, someone was carrying their dead to a single specific place, and they weren't doing it empty-handed. Among all those bones, archaeologists found a single hand axe, carved from beautiful pink quartzite, a stone you had to travel to find. It was never used, no wear, no damage. It was made to be beautiful and then given to the dead. They nicknamed it Excalibur, and it may be the oldest gift from the living to the dead ever discovered. Now travel forward in time and east to a cave in the mountains of Iraq, Shanidar. Here, Neanderthals, the people we were taught to picture as brutes, buried their dead. And around one body, researchers found dense clumps of ancient flower pollen, as if someone had laid him down on a bed of wildflowers. Now, scientists still fight about that pollen. Some think burrowing animals carried it in, so hold it loosely, because you don't actually need the flowers. There's another man in that same cave. We call him Shanidar I. He was, by the standards of his world, ancient, and he was wrecked. Blind in one eye, a withered, useless arm, old, healed injuries all over his body. Healed, which means for years, maybe decades, while he couldn't hunt, couldn't feed himself, couldn't survive alone, someone fed him, someone kept him warm, someone decided he was worth keeping alive. That is care. Tens of thousands of years before us. So they cared for the living. What about the dead? For that, go to Russia, a site called Sunghir, around 34,000 years old. And here we find something that stops archaeologists cold. 2 children, buried head to head, and poured over their bodies, more than 10,000 beads, each one hand-carved from mammoth ivory. Sit with that number. Experiments suggest each bead took close to an hour to make. 10,000 beads. That's something like 10,000 hours of work. Years of a person's life, carved by firelight and then buried in the ground, on the bodies of children. No one does that for nothing. You do not spend years of your life decorating a body you believe is simply gone. The gifts are a message. They believed the dead were going somewhere, and they wanted them to arrive well. But here's where it gets strange, because burying the dead gently with gifts, that part we understand. That feels like us. What comes next doesn't. Because for a very long time, humans didn't want the dead to leave at all. At a town called Çatalhöyük 9,000 years ago, people buried their dead under the floors of their own houses, right under the beds where they slept. Generation after generation, living directly on top of their ancestors. At Jericho, they went further. They took the skull of the dead, covered it in plaster, and rebuilt the face, cheeks, a nose, a chin. And where the eyes had been, they pressed in seashells. They kept them on shelves in their homes. The faces of the dead staring back with eyes made of shell. And at a place called Gough's Cave in England, they cleaned out human skulls and shaped them carefully into cups to drink from. These people were not monsters. They were us. They simply could not accept that someone they loved was truly, completely gone. So how far back does this go? How deep is this need to not let go? Deeper than our species, maybe deeper than intelligence itself. In a cave in South Africa lie the bones of something called Homo naledi, a small-brained, distant relative found deep in a chamber so hard to reach that some argue the bodies were placed there deliberately. That one is fiercely, bitterly debated. So again, hold it loosely. But then there is Mtoto. Mtoto was a child, around 3 years old, buried 78,000 years ago in a cave in Kenya. And when scientists reconstructed the grave, they found the little body had been curled up on its side, knees tucked in, head resting, as if someone had laid the child down to sleep. Someone dug that grave. Someone folded those tiny limbs. Someone chose the position. Gently. And that's the answer. That's what the first humans did when someone died. The same thing you would do. Strip it all away. The pits, the ivory, the plastered skulls, the shells, and the thing underneath, the thing that made them stop and kneel and care. It was never religion. Religion came later. Underneath all of it was something simpler and older. It was love, and it was grief. Grief may be the oldest human act there is. Older than farming, older than writing, older maybe than our species itself. So the next time you lose someone, and you're standing there, not knowing what to do with your hands, feeling like the whole world should just stop, know this: that feeling is not new. It is the single most human thing about you. Every time you have ever mourned someone, you were doing the exact thing your ancestors did, in a cave, in the dark, 400,000 years ago. They knelt in the dirt, and they said goodbye. And you still do it too.